Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Insightful Conversations with your host, Krishna Radha. Today, the guests on our show are Amido and Prem Purshottam. It's the first time we have a duo on our show. Amido took sannyas in 1977. She stayed few months in Pune ashram before going back to UK to open Osho Meditation Center in Liverpool. She was at the ranch in Oregon for 3+ years, doing various jobs and helping build the ranch. Prem Purshottam Goodnight is a traveler and an inquirer. He has explored many continents, almost all of them, and he has lived in Germany, Madagascar, India, Japan, Thailand, and many more. Traveling the world has been a major part of his life, but meditation has been at its center. Actually, even today, they are streaming in from Vietnam. They packed their belongings in US and they have decided to travel. So I'm guessing the first stop is Vietnam. Prem was first introduced to meditations through the teachings of Meher Baba, but living in the ashram and communes of Osho is where his being became grounded in meditation. Amido and Prem, they have been together since 1986, though they knew each other in the ranch and Pune ashram. They have had the good fortune to travel and meet many mystics, teachers, misfits throughout the years. Some of them are 16th, Karmapa, AG, Aja, UG Krishnamurti, Vimla Thakur, to name few. All these beautiful beings have enriched their life, and Prem has a book called Lemurs to Lamas, a Confession of a Bodhisattva. I read the book before we did this interview, and I found many pearls of wisdom in there. So I do recommend you guys do read the book if you're interested in Osho and how the disciples around him, the whole happening. So please welcome Amido and Prem Purushottam. Hi, Amido. Hi, Prem.
Hi.
How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Yes, just fine. Thank you.
It's 10 in the morning here.
In Vietnam. Which
Yes.
city are you guys?
Da Nang.
Okay. I saw some of the pictures and it's beautiful. Someday I hope to go to Vietnam. It's been on my list, probably in one of my travels. So let's begin with you, Amido. Uh, am I saying your name right first, Amido?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
So you met Osho in 1977, but when does this journey begin? Because I usually feel meeting the master is kind of almost the end step, but it starts way before somewhere, maybe in your childhood. When were the seeds? When did you think were the seeds sown?
Um, well, for me, I think it was the beginning. I have to just a small correction. It was in 1978 that I actually
Okay.
met Osho. I'd been brought up a Catholic and had become, sort of disillusioned with that. And I know I sort of had this desire that there was something that would explain everything. And I really think I was a kind of like quite a novice when I came to Pune. And
Oh, you'd done the group in France.
oh
You
yes,
should
I
start
had done some. It was kind of like a series of groups over about maybe 10 days in France. That was really significant. There were some quite amazing therapists that would come for a couple of days, like Varesh and Ananda Marga.
Mm.
And I suppose that was kind of an opening. And it was during that sort of meditation camp, you might call it, that a lot of the people there were already sannyasins, and there was a desire to start a community in Europe, a community of sannyasins. But of course, because everybody was sannyasins, they wanted to go and see Osho first.
Yeah.
And so from that came this plan to travel overland.
Mm.
Excuse me. Travel overland to India. And that journey started in October of 77.
Mm. So, was there anything in your childhood you remember which made you think about meditations or love or God or in a different way?
I think I was very attracted to Our Lady Mary. She, somebody who I would pray to as a child on my knees.
That's so cute.
And I think I know this sounds really weird, but I sort of had a desire to be good. um, and you know, when you're a Catholic, you get sent off to make your confession every week,
Mm-hmm.
and so you know, I found that I could only repeat the same things every week, you know,
Mm.
and so that sort of becomes a little meaningless.
Mm.
And when I went off to university, all the friends I met were mostly maybe sort of socialist, you would call them, maybe, yeah, more socialist than communist. And I can remember I went to mass every Sunday for quite a few months while I was at university, because I didn't want to be like throwing it all over because everybody else had. I wanted to kind of like see it to the end for myself, and it did just kind of drop away during that first year at university.
So, yeah, I kind of get a sense that it's basically you grew up religious, and then the surrounding kind of propelled you towards. It was kind of just happened, and then you accepted it. Is that how you would say?
Yes, it was sort of almost like just situations occurred
Mm-hmm.
which drew me in that direction without any deliberate effort on my part. Yeah.
Yeah, you are the lucky one, I guess. So, Prem, I read your book. It's amazing, fascinating the way you have expressed and detailed your experiences with various gurus, and also during your meditations, the process you go through. The first question I have for you is, the book says Confessions of a Bodhisattva, and you have an explanation there of what a bodhisattva is. Um, as per Buddha or Osho, I'm not sure what it mentions, but it says a seed that becomes a sprout. Basically, it's no longer a seed, it's becoming a sprout. What does that mean? Does that mean thoughts become more crystallized, purified, focused? What is your take on
Well,
that?
that's a quote from Osho on a discourse that he gave, the first discourse on the Dhammapada, and he welcomes everybody as bodhisattvas, and then he goes on to say what a bodhisattva is. But no, a bodhisattva to me means, my life is this journey, and it consumes, this journey really drives and consumes everything in my life. And that there's another reason why I said that. There was a time at the ranch when Osho bestowed these titles on various on people. There was the think there was 24 of the...
Was it 21?
21 of the enlightened ones, which were Sambodhis. And then, that's what it was called, Sambodhis. And then there was Mahasattvas and there was Bodhisattvas. Well, I was one of the Bodhisattvas. But the real reason is that it's my life, and whatever insight or realization that has happened to me, I'm doing my best to share that with others and continue on the journey, because the Bodhisattva is on the journey, not completed.
Yeah. And does that mean a bodhisattva usually his journey or her journey is to help people through their understanding and their experiences? Is that?
Well, there is one distinction between bodhisattvas and of course, I won't come up with the name now. But there's the group of those that it's important to them to try and help others. And then there's the group that just remains silent and keep it to
Siddhas,
themselves.
probably. Siddhas?
Sorry?
Siddhas? Is that the word you're looking? Siddha?
No, but that's okay.
Okay. My next one again is to you, Prem, because I read your book and I have a few things that I wanted to ask you. In your book, you mention a very intimate meeting with Osho when you were in the group which was sent to New Jersey to set up the house, the Gibbs Castle. And one afternoon or evening, I'm not sure, but you were asked to go, and his video recording wasn't working and you had to get it fixed. Can you please walk me through? I read your book, but when you talk, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the face of it, it seems so mundane and so insignificant. I mean, the facts were that I happened to be in the office of the castle, and Vivek came down and said, I need help with the VCR, video cassette recorder. And I looked around and nobody else was there, and I volunteered. And so we went upstairs and we went up into the room where Osho would watch videos. And there was just Vivek and Osho and myself. And Osho was in a chair, and on the floor was this VCR machine, and I sat on the floor. And the only problem was, you might be too young to have this experience with these VCRs. In fact, you probably are. But they would have a clock on them, and you'd set this type of setting a clock is on other things as well. So the clock has to be set, and before it's set, it's just flashing, right? Mm-hmm. And then it has two buttons. Must be a fast button and a slow button. I don't quite remember. Anyway, you push the button and it cycles through the time until you come to the right time, and then you let up and it stops. Mm-hmm. Well, as I say, this sounds so insignificant, so mundane, but Osho's sitting there and his presence is filling this room. And of course, I'm conscious of that. And then at the same time, I'm trying to do this very mundane activity of paying attention to the time that it doesn't go past. And the first time I actually missed it, I did go past. And the second time I got it, and I stopped it in time. And then I explained to Vivek how that worked. But what's also interesting is it was only a short time after that then I was called into the office and given the job of going around the States and contacting bookstores and selling Osho's books. And I don't know if they're related or not, but anyway, those two things happened.
Yeah, it is. It is such a wonderful story. Like, when I read it, in my head, I was like, I have to ask him. I want to see him express it when he says it in his words, how that meeting went. But I tried to put myself in that situation. I was like, I would be sweating probably. I wouldn't be able to fix that thing at all, you know.
One way to think of it is it's almost as if, I mean, it is. It's not almost. It is. It's infinity, the infinite, is meeting with the finite. The finite, this clock, and at the same time, there's this hugeness, and you can't get lost into the hugeness, or you can't do the work. And if you were only focused on the work, you might not feel the hugeness. But those two things simultaneously happened, and it was significant for me.
I think it's what you described is almost everyone's life, right? We get so focused that we sometimes forget the bigger picture, and sometimes we get so spiritual or about the bigger picture that the actual life is kind of lost, right? So, Amido, do you have any for meetings with Osho? Any experiences you remember?
Well, sorry, croaky.
Take your time, please, if you want to drink water or whatever.
I'll have a little drink.
And you have to tell about your darshan.
So Osho did give me my mala, and so that was really the first time that I'd been to discourses, but that was the first time that I was that close to him. And you know, just talking about that feeling of his infinity, he did at one point tell me to close my eyes, and that's almost like disappearing, and I don't really know how carefully I listened to what he said to me, because there's such a sitting in front of him is such an overwhelming feeling of love that it's I suppose I have said this before, but it's like somebody is looking at you and seeing you in your entirety and accepting and loving you for everything that you are. And that is, it's really an amazing feeling.
Did you feel that when you met other, so many enlightened masters you've met, Ajja and Yuji Krishnamurti, do they have different presence, or it always brings about the same reactions or feelings in you?
I think it's basically the same feeling of a loving presence.
So, Prem, I had a question for you. You are a traveler, a professed traveler, and
we're traveling together. We're joined at the shoulder.
No. So my question to you is, what is this urge to travel? And you said that meditation is at the center. So is this movement necessary for you to make it more centered for you, or what is your experience?
I think at some point, so before we got in our current situation, which is that we sold our house and that's all we do is travel. We lived in Atlanta, and before that we lived in Gainesville, Florida, and before that we lived in Prescott, Arizona. And each of those places, we would go out and we would travel for a few weeks, or later on it became, I think the longest was
maybe about 8 weeks.
Yeah, 2 months was the longest. And I don't know, at some point it occurred to me that I wanted to live everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And I realized that the only way I can live everywhere is to live nowhere. And so it was a logical extension that just don't live anywhere, and then you can live everywhere. And Amido and I, we spent 8 years traveling in Asia and teaching English. And this was from 1999 to 2007. And we would go to a place, Japan, Taiwan, wherever. We'd be there a year or 2 years, and then we'd go to the next place. And I think we really enjoyed it. And in between, we traveled, and then we'd finish the job, and off we'd go to the next one, not knowing where the job would be or what the job would be, or we didn't have anything arranged ahead of time. And we enjoyed that life. After 8 years came to an end, we went back to the States, and strangely enough, went right back to the same jobs we had before we left. 8 years before. Amido was a nurse. She went back to the hospital. I was working for Intuit, went back to Intuit, and made a life again of householders. And it just eventually that time again came to an end, and it was time to pack up. And it was mutual. It was something that grew. It was like, okay, well, first thing, we got new packs. And nothing like a really good backpack that really fits well, and okay, we're ready to go. So okay. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, yes. I mean, I see that in your book. Ever since you were young, you have been a traveler. You've always been on the move. So probably it's just...
you raise a good point there, actually, because my parents were separated from a young age, from the time I was 5. And every summer I would go and live with my father for the summer in Chicago. And then I lived the rest of the time with my mother in Kansas City, Missouri. And it was back and forth. And so I was kind of like, well, by homeful or homeless, right from the beginning, and therefore had less, attachment to one place, and enjoyed being both of them. So there's probably something there.
Right. Amido, do you like traveling as much as Prem? Or you just happy to be with him, and then you enjoy the benefits of who's the planner, who's the resourceful one?
Well, he's definitely the planner and also very resourceful. I really enjoy traveling. I mean, there's actually, I just love the traveling part of traveling. I really like being on a train or on a bus, and it's sort of like, or a plane. I've liked that forever. Just, it's like time out from your life, when you can just be.
It's interesting. It's like the motion and the movement is making you just be. Yeah, it's interesting.
And the stillness, because
Yeah.
at the same time, there's this stillness moving through this, it's,
To feel that stillness, probably this movement, or I don't know, because I see a lot of that in young people nowadays. They really like to travel, and they really like to keep moving. Very few of the newer generations, even younger than me, are attached to a place or a home. So yeah, there must be something there. um, Prem, you said in your book that during a meditation, a group meditation, you had a Satori experience. And there were a couple, but there was this one where you said it moved you from witnessing to self inquiry. What is the difference?
um, that
Maybe I missed the word, maybe it's not witnessing, but it changed the direction to self inquiry.
yes. Okay. So what you're actually referring to happened more after Osho died. That's different from the Satori. The Satori happened in a group with Somendra, who was one of the group leaders. And the way I described it in the book was it was like a French press. So the energy from my head down to the heart and below the head. And it was just like you'd be pushing a French press making coffee, and then you're the coffee down there. So that's how I describe that. But about this movement from so with Osho, and Osho's describing many different approaches, and he's describing the approach of surrender, and the approach of surrender and love, and the approach of meditation and understanding. And I don't know why it happened, but somehow after Osho left the body, after Osho left the body, I then started exploring the teachings of Ramana Maharshi in detail. I mean, I knew of them from Osho, but for myself, and Nisargadatta Maharaj, and then we came across this teacher, Sean Klein, that maybe you're going to speak of. But through that, it became clear to me that my way was through meditation and through self-inquiry. And that's where all of my focus, attention, direction headed, and grew from there.
What do you think is the difference between what is self-inquiry? Is it different from witnessing? Is it?
No. Well, witnessing is a word that encompasses so much and then can be used in detail, but to describe watching, Osho uses them synonymously sometimes, and then distinguishes between the two as well. But I will say this, that my whole time being with Osho, meditating with Osho, being either in the festivals or in Pune One, in discourse, darshan, it was an experience of, and I didn't know it at the time, but after the end of the ranch, it became clear that it wasn't my own inquiry. I was riding on Osho's state, space, And it was really easy. You'd sit in discourse, and if you were paying attention and you were present, you would easily be drowned in his vastness. And when the ranch came to an end, I think many of us were, and many too, when Pune 1 came to an end, those who were in Pune 1 and then Osho left, it was a shock to the system. And we were shocked to, or I was shocked to, the realization that this this bliss, this meditation, this grooviness that I was experiencing with Osho was not mine. And that now it was time for me to discover how to come to that on my own. And that's what happened after the end of the ranch. And that's what propelled that self-inquiry. And so you ask, what is self-inquiry? Self-inquiry for me means finding your own center and finding how to move to that center so that you are not dependent on anybody else, anything else. You know how to move to that center. That's what self-inquiry is for me. And witnessing, I will say, we're probably going to talk about this because of the course in witnessing, but through this period of really exploring, I also discovered that, oh goodness, Osho was talking about this Advaita all along. I didn't realize it. He was talking about the same kind of thing that Ramana Maharshi was talking about. It wasn't different. It was just, I wasn't really hearing the words in the same way. And through this, again, I'll leave this for later if we're going to talk about the Course in Witnessing. But I discovered that and started looking more into his books, his discourses, but with that eye towards that inquiry specifically. Because Osho talks about many things, politics and social change and relationship. But now a change that had happened is that I was really looking specifically at what he's speaking about on inquiry and witnessing.
The core of the matter, basically, after all okay. Amida, what was his path is meditation and self-inquiry. Is that yours too, or you have your own experience?
I would still call it my own experience, but I think inquiry and meditation have become my path too. I can remember, like in the 1990s, Purshottam was reading lots and lots of books. I remember particularly he was very impressed by Nisargadatta. Is it I Am That? Yeah, I Am That. And he gave it to me to read. And at that time I tried reading it, but I just couldn't. It just, I suppose I just didn't understand it. And then years later, when we were traveling,
in India, in fact.
I picked it up again, and it was just perfect.
Do you write poems? So you have expressive quality in you too. Is there any other way that you find your core. Like for me, I since I was a kid, I've loved dancing and music, and it usually gets me I flow with it very easily. Meditations are kind of little hard. It's something I have to force myself versus this is easy. So I find that expressing myself through those avenues helps me a bit more. And you are a poet, so do you have any other ways of expressing or how you come back to yourself through these mediums?
Um, I, I, I know music can have a profound effect on me. Just listening to music, sometimes it just, takes you somewhere or touches your heart so deeply. But I think, and also I really love walking in nature. Just looking at everything that is around. That really takes you inside, even though you're looking out. And I have to say that sometimes I find it very difficult to meditate, and it's just, you have to have incredible persistence.
Yeah,
And I know,
determination.
and also just be grateful for, I'm grateful for even a few moments, whenever they arrive.
Yeah, but I've realized I used to think if I like dancing and music and these sort of creative things, why do I need to meditate? But I've realized that the discipline helps you even in your creative um, output, and it grounds you. So it absolutely you have to push yourself and you have to do certain things, but it definitely gives a certain fragrance to your uh, even your expressions of your artistic abilities change after you meditate. So yes, I would recommend that to everyone, even though it's hard. So Prem, you by your admission have mentioned that for you meditations are natural, you like to go into that path. But does the witnessing become too much? So sometimes you're always on the outside and you're not really you don't give in to the flow of something. Does that become a problem ever?
That I would say that's not really the case. So, with watching, what we are putting ourselves separate from is the mind. And the reason we're putting ourselves, creating this gap, this space between this watchingness and the objects of the mind, the thoughts and emotions and all, is that before doing that, we're totally identified with it. So before I ever began meditation, I thought these thoughts were me. And I think that's a natural thing. We think that's who we are, is this mind moving. And so we watch this movement of mind to discover that there's something that's beyond the mind.
Hmm.
So, yes, it is true that we're creating space and distance through this mind, which is simply identification with thought and memory and blah, blah, blah. But it's not the case with. So, for example, Osho's described his path of meditation as you begin with watching the activities of the body. So, you know, whether it's walking or you're drinking tea or in your daily life, in your work, dancing. So you're becoming aware of the activity of the body, but from the inside.
Mm.
And the second step is he describes it as then with that quality of watching that you've developed through watching the activities of the bodies. Now there's a watcher that's growing. Now we have the capacity to begin watching the mind. And of course, we watch, we get lost, we watch, we forget, we're drawn out, we watch, we remember. This happens again and again and again and again. And then he describes the third step is watching the activities of the heart. And the reason it's described that way is watching the activity of the body, it's the easiest. It's the furthest away from this watching.
Mm-hmm.
The mind is a little bit closer, a little bit more difficult. And the feelings of the heart are even closer. So it requires this extra quality of watching to be able to, but it's ironic because watching, for example, this feelings of the heart, these things that emerge, watching totally, there's no separation. So there's separation in that there's non-identification, and yet I know it sounds crazy because it makes no logical sense at all, but it's the case that there is total being with that which you're watching. But there's not, with the real witness, there is nobody in between. The in between is this me. And so if we watch carefully where this me steps aside or dissolves or for a moment is not there, we're watching, and in fact, it's then oneness.
Would this the watching part and the Tao or the these two are completely different ways of opposite probably, but is there any point obviously in the end everything you experience becomes the same, but in the process how would one know that this is your way or the other thing?
Well, this is so you're speaking of the Taoist approach of relax and don't do anything and easy is right. And through this process that I alluded to of creating this Course in Witnessing and looking at all these discourses from chronologically from the beginning to the end.
Sorry, Prem, because we are referring to the Course of Witnessing, let me just tell everyone that you have, I'm going to put the website, you have, I think I had your website, I put the link, it's o-meditations.com.
No S, O-meditation. There you go.
Yeah.
There it is.
And you are offering a course where if you want to tell everyone, that would be much better probably. So
so you can find information about it on the website, omeditation.com, and if you look at my Facebook page or anyway, it's called A Course in Witnessing. And it is 144 programs. And a program consists of 2 hours. Half of it is what we call listening meditation, Osho discourse. And the second half is a satsang that we've created with alternating periods of silence, music, and maybe just a few excerpts from that discourse that we heard. So there's 1 hour, basically 1 hour of listening meditation, 1 hour of satsang meditation, 144 programs that are arranged into 7 modules. I had no intention to create this. It was created as a result of finding discourse pieces to make satsangs, because we used to hold satsangs wherever we lived. We would hold live satsangs usually on Sunday morning. And I would want to create a satsang on a CD so that I could put the CD on and I could participate. I didn't have to do anything. So I would create them in advance. And in creating these, I started investigating, exploring all the times Osho speaking on witnessing and short excerpts. Through this, anyway, long and short of it is, through this process, we ended up, because we worked together on this, in the end, it became clear, look what we have here. We have a course in witnessing. And one thing, the word that I was trying to think of, I lost it again. I had it. I was going to put it in chat. Arhat. So
Arhat.
the distinction, Arhat, between Bodhisattva and Arhat.
Arhat
Okay.
class. Yeah.
Bodhisattva and Arhat. Okay. So
so these courses are free. Prem and Amido are offering them free. You have to get onto his mailing list.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You can access them right through ommeditation.com. But if you get on the mailing list, then we send out the links. We do these programs Saturday multiple times. I mean, at 2:00 GMT. And so whatever your time is at 2:00 p.m. GMT is when it is. It happens to be 6:00 your time, Radha, as you well know, and 10:00 our time here in Vietnam, or 9:00 our time here in Vietnam. But we send out links after the meditation on Saturday for those who couldn't join live. But they're all already on the website now. So somebody could access all of them right now if they just searched for A Course in Witnessing.
Yeah, I have to confess, I haven't gone on the satsang, but I listen to those discourses later on when you send the links. Like when I'm driving or I'm doing, it's just Saturday mornings, I'm like, let me just sleep for a bit more. I need more discipline, as I said. But
in there, back to your question, in there is the, you find Osho really making it clear the distinction about path of Tao, which really is when we have reached that stage. So there's not many of us that can begin with this path of Tao. We have to have a watcher. We have to have a witness. And for many of us, we have to work on that to create that.
And the effort could be different for different people, but I agree with you. The effort has to be there. It has to begin with the effort. Yes. Sometimes I've realized some people have past life effort, which we don't know.
Right.
And it seems easy, like they're having it without any effort. But at some point, there has been some effort. So
Ramana Maharshi, he just lied down and thought he died, and that was it. But obviously, he came prepared when he came into this life.
Now,
Osho worked hard. You read, he worked very hard.
Yeah. I think he took the long route of knowing everything.
And the advantage in that is that he can help more people. Because he knows, the path from the beginning all the way through all the stages and all the pitfalls and all the hurdles that come along the way.
I guess you need to have a curious nature, right, for something like that. You need to be really curious to know things, versus if you just let things happen.
I
And
would say I'll just say one more thing too, because you mentioned about Meher Baba. So for 7 years, I was with Meher Baba. Well, Meher Baba is the path of surrender, totally.
Mhm.
Yes, he's good, a bit of meditation there and Tratak meditation. And so, but Meher Baba is, hang on to the hem of his robe. And, and so for 7 years, really, that was my path. I arrived in Pune 1 in all green, which is the color of Sufis. I didn't know it was the color of Sufis, but I arrived. And
I'm just
so,
imagining you in the maroon, you're the green.
and so it was really Osho that introduced me to meditation. So
Yeah, I think we oftentimes, like, it seems very easy surrendering, but when you really get into it, you realize how hard it is to let go. It's not an easy. Your mind, the ego, it doesn't let you just completely. So we, most of us, I think, we hang out in these, between these two realms. And so yeah, it's I don't know where the balance is, and whether it's both in ways of inquiry that work for most, or if it's one. What do you think? Is it always one prominent one and then the other follows, or you can walk in both paths?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know,
That's
because for me, they've been at different times.
mm,
But of course, in meditation, reaching that center is surrender.
mm, mm. But that's through effort, right? When you do your effort.
Only to the point. Yes, it's effort, 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 right to that door
Yeah.
as far as you can go. And then it's thy will be done.
Mm. Yeah.
And
When
it's
you know
surrender.
you can't do anything much other than, like,
There's no one to do anything.
yeah. When you met Yuji, what was your interaction, and how did you ask him any questions? What was
You
your
start.
I didn't ask him any questions, but I sat next to him on the couch, which was really quite amazing. And just sort of observed how he was interacting with people. And, I hadn't read much of Yuji before we actually met him. And so mostly what you read is quite sort of sensational in a way that he can be kind of nasty to people. And when I was sitting there, even though sometimes he would say something that was the words could be interpreted as being unkind words, but it never felt like that, and it didn't seem like the person receiving them felt like that either. It was kind of like, something in that moment that was maybe beneficial to that person. But and I remember also that, like, we were only there for a couple of days, but the last sort of late afternoon when we were sitting there, and I can't remember, I think he'd got somebody to read from the book that somebody was writing about him. But we were all just sitting there, very quietly. And it was the first time that I ever got a glimpse of this two-pointed arrow sitting with Yuji. And I felt tremendous love from him.
You might have to explain the double-pointed arrow.
Huh?
You might have to explain the double-pointed arrow.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh.
Is it a Buddhist concept? What is it?
No, it's Osho's.
Osho talks about it a lot. Where's when you're like watching your mind, or it's your mind really. You're watching your thoughts, and you get a glimpse of the watchingness, that you're not just your mind. There is, I can't even say something, but there's a watchingness.
Mm. Mm.
An awareness. An easy illustration of this, I think, and one that Osho gives, is because he says, so we begin with taking this double-pointed arrow into watching our bodies. So I can move my hand unconsciously, but I can also move my hand consciously. And that moving my hand consciously, and as you see Osho moving, obviously that's happening all the time. But when I'm moving my hand consciously, there is the double-pointed arrow. There's awareness.
Mm. But that's in moments and brief, and probably for
Right.
people.
And then you're lost, and then you're, unconscious. Right. And so the trick is bringing more of that double-pointed arrow into all of your life, and into watching the mind, and into watching your feelings of the heart, and until there's nothing to watch, and only this witness, conscious, not asleep.
Let's begin with the first step. How does someone, before we go to the 10th and the 100th one, if someone's starting on this journey of witnessing, obviously Osho's meditations, his discourses, listening, all those are great tools which help us. Is there anything from your experience you would tell people that this is a
Well, since you mentioned Osho's discourses, one of the things I discovered through listening to so many discourse series is that Osho often, why is that screen going like that?
I was trying to get you guys in the focus, and then it just,
Okay.
so yeah.
Osho often introduced discourse series speaking about right listening. And this is very important, because if we discover the key to this right listening, we've got the key to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this goes back to UG, and I'll bring that there in a minute. So, but what is right listening? So Osho says right listening. So when you're listening to Osho's discourse, you can listen and you're ironing and you're doing 100, you're making dinner, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not a meditation. Mm-hmm. To listen to Osho as a meditation, as we did sitting in front of him, we bring a special kind of listening. And this listening means we're present. We're not bringing the mind in. We're not agreeing or disagreeing, he says. We're not judging, and we're not analyzing. We're simply being present. The words are happening. The space is happening. We're just present in stillness and in silence. And that's the same thing that we bring to our watching the mind. That's the same thing so back to UG, I wanted to say, because that was an experience. UG, it only occurred to me right here in this dialogue with you, that his method at that time, because initially he had a teaching, but at some point that was all gone, and he gathered, people would come, and he was outrageous, and he would talk. And when we arrived, he was watching a video of himself. So we were in the living room in Bangalore, and he was sitting on the sofa, and there's people around, and over on the side was a television playing a video of him. I didn't know he was in the room. I looked, we're all watching this video, and then I happened to look, oh, that's UG they're watching. But when he was speaking, and Amido was alluding to this, he would go around the same thing again and again, and it was almost gibberish, really, at this stage when he's speaking. But if you listened with that presence, you dropped into that center. And that's what I think Amido experienced and I experienced. And so people that were around him for a long time, they just didn't pay any attention to whatever it was he was saying. They were just sitting there. And yeah, they would say a few things to keep the conversation going, but they're just dropping into this happening of sitting there being with UG.
Yeah. It's one of the other mechanism, I guess, enlightened people use to drop our minds when you it happens a lot of time with Osho's discourses. You're listening and you forget actually what he's saying. If you think about it after an hour, you don't really know what he was saying, but you were there, and you knew that it is registered somewhere, but you just don't know what it is.
And sometimes something really strikes a chord, and it's like, whoa, and that remains. But yes, often it's just this.
Or sometimes something can come back to you years later.
Yeah.
And so it's registered.
You also very interestingly said, Prem, in your book that Osho used to have these Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, this prayer, right? And he had changed the third line to the second. He had put Sangham Sharanam as the second one, whereas Buddha had put that as a third.
No, we don't know if Buddha did. All that we know is that within the tradition around that they're doing, that's how it is. Yeah.
And for you, the experience was Pune 1 was like Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Ranch was like Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, which was even harder. And then when Osho was gone, it was Dhammam Sharanam, going back right into your center. Do you want to talk more about this? And Amido, you can.
I wouldn't put too much into it. It was just that at some point it was this insight that, well, first off, it was curious to me that Osho did change. I know what happened. When we went to Bodh Gaya and we were hearing all the recordings were different. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So in Bodh Gaya, in the Buddhist community there, they have a different order. And so when we got back to the States, I explored that a little bit. And I saw, no, at first I thought, well, maybe Sheila changed it or something. You never know. But no, Osho is very clear in many, many, many discourses that this was the order in these Gachamis. And then it just, this insight, this personal insight came that, yes, for me, it was like, so in Pune, it was all him, really. He was in discourse, it was darshan, and it would be difficult not to surrender to Osho in this. In front of the master, you just simply fall at his feet, whether you're at his feet or not. It's inevitable. But of course, experience at the ranch. And I will also say that some of us had different experiences in Pune 1. I happened to be in the kitchen with Diksha. So we had more difficulty with it. We were getting the
Gurdjieff experience.
Yeah, we were getting the preview of the surrendering to the commune there with Diksha. But at the ranch, of course, for some people, and for some it was not at all, but for some people it was we'd come up against ourselves again and again. We see that and let go of that, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was, I just saw it as that was bowing down to the commune of the awakened one, and then the last kind of speaks for itself. It's finding that truth on your own.
Mm.
But I wouldn't read too much into it. It was just
I like
something
that.
to
I
write.
think it kind of cleared, it made sense to me. Yeah.
You'll find a lot of people, I'm sure, that will totally object to what I just said there,
I'm sure
and they have a
everybody has
different
their own.
viewpoint.
Yeah,
That's
I'm sure.
it's
Everybody
valid,
has their
just
own
as valid.
experience. Yeah. My last question to both of you. What is love for you both? And start from when you guys were young till up till now.
So, of course, love changes. And so I'm going to start with love. Love for me now is lovingness. Being loving inside myself rather than love being concentrated upon an object or a person even. So when we first were together, I think really and truly it was the first time that my heart really opened with another person. I think that Osho opened my heart in a way, but that it was the beginning. And then being with Purshottam, I felt my heart really open when I was with him. And I've always seen it as it's very important being with him. I learned so much from being with him. And it's not like it's always easy.
I'm sure.
Sometimes it's downright difficult. But I always think, one of the things I remember Osho saying is, be more loving. Be more loving. And it's something I used to practice a lot when I was a nurse, when a patient would drive me crazy. I'd sort of leave the room and gather myself. But I think being more loving is not a bad way to live.
I would agree with you 100%. Prem, I would like to know what you think about.
Well, you asked about your earliest experiences, so I had a little opportunity while Amido was speaking to see what arose. And I could say one of my first experiences of being in love was, so I mentioned I'd go and stay with my father in the summer, and oftentimes we were driving somewhere on a highway somewhere, going someplace, and I remember driving in the evening, and I can picture it right now, and the lights from the radio is on and the lights from the dashboard, and my head is in his lap on the front seat of the car, and what a feeling of love, but being taken care of and nourishment. And I remember that. And the next time that I remember something like that was actually who ended up being my first girlfriend. And I was only probably 17 or 16, and she was a year younger. And the first time we met, we were at a high school party, and somehow it ended up, she came and she sat on my lap. And I still to this day remember that feeling of really oneness, actually. So this melting that I had never experienced that before. That was the second. When Osho gave me my name, which was Prem Purshottam, I investigated this word Prem, and I discovered that what it really means is love without an object. Mm-hmm. Just like Amido was. So it's not focused somewhere. It's just emanating, and that's what love is. Love is who we are. Sometimes, and better the more times the better.
I think
more often the better.
Yeah, I think we are loved most of the times. It's just it gets covered with so many things. You're trying to protect yourself from when you think someone is not being as loving towards you, or somebody's pulling back, and then you kind of form a shield. But most of the time, that love is there, and you want to include and you want to do things, but you just get scared that the other person would take advantage or exploit and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I think the foundation stays, but you just cover it up with different things. I thank you so much, both of you. And I not a better way to end this podcast on the note what Amido said, that it wouldn't hurt to be more loving. Definitely. Thank you, both of you. And I hope to see you in your satsang salon on Saturday.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Radha.
Yes, thank you, Radha.
Living life, make it last. Every moment, got no past. Future calling, moving fast.